Okay, this is story time. Let me take my glasses off. Um, because those of you who know me, I'm a teacher. I teach business English for different corporations, international companies all around. So sometimes you might catch me with my teacher glasses on. That's what I call them. But this video is different than any other video I've done. I think people are probably getting a little tired of my traveling abroad videos, talking about how to travel abroad, questions they may have, yada, 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 about the same topic about living abroad or those people who want to move abroad. This is not like that. I am pivoting or changing my content to have multiple topics. So this topic is it's more like a story time, and it is about a fear that I had, and many might have, while they're living abroad. And these are some fears that may shake you to your core and make you run back to the United States. And but I'm here to tell you, you can get through them. They're not as scary as it seems when it first happens. Okay, so I'm going to mention two incidents that recently. One was recent, and the last one was a couple of years ago. And I'll start off with the one a couple of years ago, and that was with the border patrol or border control. When you're traveling between countries and you have to go through customs, and especially when you're traveling by bus or train. And this incident was, like I said, a couple of years ago. Oh my goodness. And I've been abroad for 5 years without going home. So I've mastered my way of going through borders, making sure I don't overstay my visa. At this time, I didn't have a work visa like I currently have to be able to travel seamlessly through the European countries. So at this time, I didn't have that. I was just going with the Schengen rules, which is for Americans. We can live in Europe or we can travel Europe 90 days in and 90 days out, which is my tea. So I can have my tea as well. So most people know that we have 90 days to travel within the Schengen country, or you can just hop around as much as you want in the Schengen zone with the Schengen countries until your 90 days are up, your 3 months are up. And then you go to a country that's not in the Schengen zone, and you spend 3 months abroad there, or you jump around to other places like Turkey, or like my favorite place to go was Georgia. It still is. I have some friends there and connections in Georgia, the country, of course. Batumi and Tbilisi, those are the cities in Georgia. So I had gotten used to that. And I always track, how long I've been where and, when it's time to leave. But this particular time, it was right after COVID. So, yeah, so it was like a little over 2 years ago. It was right after COVID. And I was in Vienna at the time. And I stayed in Vienna because I also have friends there too. So I was in Vienna for this 3 months. I figure I'd stay there, and I work online, so it's easy for me to just be able to stay and relax. And as a slow traveler, sometimes I get tired of just jumping around. It's not like I figured that out, because that's one thing you'll learn too, that as you travel and you know thyself, you know what you like. If you like jumping around from, stay in one place for a week or 2 weeks or a month, some people, like to do that. But after a while, you'll know what your patterns are and what works for you. And since I do teach online and sometimes I have to show up in person to certain companies, I prefer to have a base for at least that 3 months and then leave. This is when I didn't have work visa. So that was my rhythm. That was my system. I would just stay in one place, and Vienna was it for me for that year. And so the incident happened when it was time for me to leave, and I was going to Croatia, Zagreb, which is another place that was one of my jump to places. And Croatia at that time was not a part of the Schengen zone. Now they are. As of 2024, I think they became Schengen. Now they're also on the euro currency too. But at this time, they weren't. So I was going to go back to Zagreb and just relax there and spend my 3 months there and then figure out where I was going to go next. It wasn't going to be Vienna. Honestly, Vienna is not a place I'd like to live, even though it's a beautiful, beautiful city. It's one of the places that a lot of people love to, they say it's a great place for families. And it does. It has a great social system. Just for me, it didn't fit, my vibe. But it's always a great place to go for a short time. So I was going back to Zagreb so I can figure out if I was going to stay in Zagreb for a while or, go somewhere different because I'm still traveling with the end goal of finding my forever home in Europe. So anyway, as I was leaving, I take a Flixbus. And a Flixbus, if you're not familiar with it, is like everyone who lives in Europe and travel around. If you're not flying out, they have some very affordable flights that you can go back and forth to different countries for sometimes, under 20 euro. But if you have luggage, heavy luggage, or even just two pieces of luggage, it's not advantageous for you because they charge so much for extra luggage. So most people take a bus, which are their buses, Flixbus is very comfortable, it has Wi-Fi, but it depends on the company too and what country you take this bus from. But most of them are all very comfortable. They have Wi-Fi and they take you all around Europe. And I'll show you. I'll leave a photo in this video, maybe up here. I'll put a image of the Flixbus and what it looks like. And I think they're in the United States now. To be honest, I think they are. Anyway, so I took this bus. It's only a 4-hour drive, 4 hour and a half bus ride from Vienna to Zagreb. So I know this because I've done it before. So the scare, I'll get to that. So I think I've done everything right. Obviously, where I'm going with this story. But I get to we go through customs, and I'm thinking nothing of it because I go through the first part. And then the second part, when I'm leaving Vienna, but you're still in Austria, they come on and they say, Williams. And of course, it's my last name. And the guy says, Williams, he's holding my passport because what happens is you'll get to the border. They'll make you get off the bus. At this point, I had gotten off the bus this time. The first time we went through a border where I guess they check the driver. The second part is when we all have to get off and we go through whatever. We go through the customs and they stamp your book. That's the usual route. But this time it didn't happen. The border patrol guy came on the bus and he asked us to hand him all the passports. So he gathered up all the passports and then he left. And then we sat on the bus. So this time, we got to sit on the bus and wait for him to come back after they stamped the books. So after about maybe 30 minutes or so, he comes back and he's like, Williams. And then, I say, and he says, come with me. And then he gives the other books, because it was like maybe 30 people on the bus. So he gives the other passport books to the driver. I get off the bus and I get off the bus and I'm like, oh my God. And he said, follow me. And they're like mean, very mean and stern. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? And in the back of my head, I'm still thinking, I know I didn't overstay. I got it down to like, maybe a week or two before the 90 days. So anyway, I go there and they're looking very stern and not so happy. And the guy, he says, you're American. And then I said, yes, like that. And he goes, And he says, you overstay. And I said, and he had a very strong accent, Austrian accent. And I was like, I what? And he says, you overstay. You think you're American. You can just come and go when you want. You have to. And he just started berating me. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, no, I didn't overstay. So I was trying to explain to him that I didn't overstay. And, I knew I had done the calculations right. And the bus was still waiting. And I was like, oh my God. So the bus was still waiting. And as I'm standing there, they're telling the bus driver to come, in the bus, and so they can kind of translate a little bit better. And the bus driver comes in because he spoke a little bit better English, and the border patrol guy, the customs, they spoke good English too. So I don't know why he wanted the bus driver there, but long story short, they're going through the book, they're looking at the stamps, and they're asking me when did I leave and when did I come in. I told him I was in Poland first, and then I came to Vienna. And he was like, no, you didn't come to Vienna. You didn't come on this day. I said, yes, I did, because I have so many. That's the thing. I'm so glad they have digital more now, because I had so many stamps in my book. He had to look for it. And they kept going through the pages and going through the pages. And he was like, that's going to be 200 euro. You owe 200 euro. And then you can go to Zagreb. And I was like, I didn't have 200 euro on me. He said, I'd take you to ATM. And I was like, okay. And I was like, but I didn't stay. And I knew I did it to the 2 weeks or the 3 weeks I had before my time was up. Then I thought, okay, I know what I can do. I had my phone, but my purse was on the bus. So I asked the bus driver, can he get my purse, because my phone is in there, and I can show them my exits, because the date that I left Poland and arrived into Vienna was on the photos and all the pictures that I had taken when I was coming, and it also has the dates. So, and because it's more clear, and I also had the Flixbus that I had taken, the date, all the ticket inside, digital ticket. So he was nice enough, and he goes and he gets my purse, and I grabbed my phone and I showed him. He was like, no, I don't want to see. And I wasn't sure if they just wanted the money or did they really want to see. So it was finally another older man came, and he was like, okay, he grabbed my phone and he was asking me what was I looking for. And I said, I want to show you the dates that I came into Vienna. And luckily he was like, okay, he gave me back the phone, and I scrolled through it. It took me forever to find that doggone those photos and that ticket, because I was so nervous. And oh my goodness. So finally I found it, and it showed that the date that I arrived into Vienna, I had the Flixbus ticket and everything. And by this time, I think, almost an hour. Well, no, not quite an hour. Something like 45 minutes or so had passed by. So these people who are going to Zagreb like me, they have to wait on me. So, and they could have, the bus driver could have just got on and left me there, but he didn't. He was like, no, because I asked him, I was like, are you going to leave me? He was like, no, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to stay. So they looked through the phone, and then they saw it, and then they gave it to the guy inside behind the little booth, and it showed the date, the ticket, and the year and everything. And then he looked through the book again, and he said, Poland, like that, something with the word Poland in it. And then he gave me back the book, and then they stamped it, and then he's get on the bus. And so the bus driver was, he was like, come on, let's go. So I get back on the bus. But I say that to say that was one of my first scares when it comes to the border, customs and the border control or the border. And so I say that because if you have now it's different because they have digital, now everything is digitalized. But at that time it wasn't, because I had so many stamps in my book. I've been so many different countries and, back and forth to those countries. So I say that to say, pay attention, pay, close attention to your 3 months, your 90 days, where you could use those, where those 90 days are good at, and what countries where you can only stay. Sometimes you may be in a country like Albania where you can stay a year, and sometimes you may lose track of that. Stay on top of that. Also, there is also possibilities where you can go to the embassy, or somewhere like the embassy, or it's the consulate in that country that you're in if you want to stay longer, or perhaps you've stayed, or you think you may have overstayed, and go there and ask about an extension, or if you could apply for residency. So there's some countries that let you do that too. But I would just say, just pay attention to, your timeline, so that was the first scare. And, luckily for me, the bus driver was nice enough to stay, and wait, because he could have just left me there and let me sort it out. And then I would have had to turn around and go back with no way to get back. So, that turned out pretty well. And to be honest, whenever I have like little weird hiccups, they always work out. There's always someone that's helping, regardless. So even then, even though I was scared, something in the back of my mind said it would work out because I did pay attention to my timeline. Okay, so the second scare has to do with finances, right? So we all worried about that, especially if you're still connected to the United States. My banking is still at least one of the banks I have currently, but at that time, all the banks I didn't have a European bank. I just had, one bank from the U.S. I had two banks, one a credit union and a regular bank. And sometimes what will happen if you travel to multiple countries, sometimes in a day, and you're using your card at the same time, your credit card, and not a credit card, your debit, because in Europe, most people don't use credit cards. They use their bank card as a credit card, which we say in the United States debit. They're not credit obsessed, most European countries and European people. So, whatever, when you use your card, that money comes out right then and there. It's not connected to credit, unless, they apply for a credit card. But to be honest, most Europeans, most people I know in Europe, they use their bank card and it is a debit card. So what you get, what you pay for, what you're buying, you're paying for. You're not putting it on credit. So I say that because, when I use my credit card, everything in my credit card and on there is my bank money. So sometimes what happens is that even when you tell your bank, because they tell you if you're traveling abroad, let us know so we can put a travel alert on your card, and we won't, we'll know that someone that's not someone is that you are using your card in all these countries, not someone else. That's to protect you from bank fraud, of course. So and I think many people who travel know this one as well. And it's always an inconvenience. And this is the second scare I had, which was recent. And they put a block on my card because I was traveling multiple countries within, 2 days. I was in, I won't mention the countries, but I was in probably 4 in 2 days, and using my card at the same time because most of the times the European countries are Western European countries, they don't use cash anymore. Most of them, you use your card for everything. You use you tap your card, you use your Apple Pay or something like that. So for these purposes, I never keep cash on me anymore. And also for safety reasons, just don't keep cash. Maybe just a few euros to buy things or something if a vendor doesn't take a card. But for the most part, most places use their, Apple Pay or, tap card and things like that. So this particular time, I had been jumping all around because I was trying to come back to a certain destination, and I get to normally I don't stay in hotels. Usually I book a apartment through Booking or Airbnb, or one that I've stayed in before. That's usually when I'm going to a country I've been to before. That's another tip. If you've been to a country, you've stayed in an apartment or something through Airbnb, reach out to the same host and see if it's available. So that's what I usually do. But this time I didn't do it was because it was kind of last minute. I was going to be arriving at midnight, very late. And so I booked a hotel instead. Well, I thought I booked a hotel instead. So what happened was the bus was late. And it wasn't just an hour late, it was 3 hours late, which made me arrive to my destination at about 4:30 in the morning, 3:30 or some 3:30 in the morning. And so I said, okay, let me find a hotel somewhere I can just, lay my head because, I can't check in to where I was going to book an apartment, the same place I usually go to. But I need to go somewhere. So I said, okay, I'm going to find a hotel early in the morning because the bus arrived at a bus station that at the time I didn't know had a hotel at the bus station. I didn't know at that time. So I go use my card to see if I can grab some money out. and it wouldn't work. I couldn't get any money out. Long story short, my card was blocked. I couldn't do nothing. I went online on my phone to see if I can log into my account. I did. It says blocked account. And I won't go into details because there's a lot of people who know what happens. You usually have to call the bank, let them know it's me because it was a fraud alert on my account, and you have to call them, and then you have to go through all these customer service people. At the time, I had limited internet for international calls. There's no such thing as an 800 number. So this was, at this point, before I didn't have an international bank. Luckily, I had a Polish bank account, so I was able to think I can use this account. But usually I transfer money from my American account into that one, and I wasn't able to do that. So I was stuck, and I was thinking, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And all I could do is, when you have a PayPal account, it's always good to keep money on your PayPal account too, which I did. And I was able to have a friend send some money to the PayPal account until they can unlock the account. I knew what I had to do, but I knew couldn't do it. It was too early in the morning. I didn't have the access on my phone for that. I would have needed to get inside to an apartment or hotel and use the Wi-Fi and go that route. But I didn't have connections for that. So, luckily I was able to call through WhatsApp, for just a friend, but not the banking. You can't do that. Of course, they don't have WhatsApp. And so, and help me with putting some money on my PayPal. Luckily, I had some there already, but just like as a backup. So that was very, very helpful because I was able to, with booking.com, they have those options where you can book your room through the normal routes with your Visa card or, whatever. And also your Wise and some other ones and PayPal. So that saved me. And then as I was walking and, pulling my luggage and everything, and I had, was looking on there, someone was, because I was trying to find another Wi-Fi spot where I was at. And someone, because I had already made the call, and so the phone kept dropping. And I'm looking for another Wi-Fi, a spot where I can connect to the Wi-Fi again. As I'm doing that, someone stopped and, who was at the bus station too, and asked me, was I having an issue? And I was telling them where's the best place to sit for Wi-Fi. And they said, oh, go upstairs. Even though the mall is closed, go up there. And there is a hotel up there. You can use their Wi-Fi. And I was like, there's a hotel? They was like, yeah, it's a very nice hotel. Because they didn't know what my issue was. And it was like, yeah, you can go inside and use their Wi-Fi. So I went there. Once they found out that, they have room and it was available and it was a nice place. And so I didn't have cash on me. I couldn't use my regular debit card, but I asked them if they were on Booking. They were. So I was able to find them on Booking, book them, and pay with PayPal. And when I have Booking, I also have the Genius discounts, which gives me a discount. So it gave me a discount, although the hotel was pretty reasonable because I was in the Balkans. I'm not going to say where I was at. But anyway, so I'll wrap this story up with, be be prepared for these incidents that may happen, but don't panic. Because I've noticed with being in Europe, there's always Europeans are kind of different. And I mean that for all the countries I've traveled. I've traveled so many, and I'm not going to say it again, but it's over 30, 35. I think I'm at 41 or something now. I can't remember if it's 40 yet. Well, anyway, between 38 and 40 countries I've traveled to, now that I think about it. But so I've been to all these countries. They, the people are different. They're not, they don't really have an individualist mindset. They're kind of this mindset where they want to help you. And especially if you are a foreigner and an American specifically, they want to help. And so I found that just relax. I know that's easier said than done, but relax and just kind of know that it will work out. And at the end of the day, there's always the American embassy. Always reach out or go call the American embassy if it's something that is just out of control that you can't handle, because that works too. I haven't had to use the embassy for any emergencies, but I have used the embassy to renew my passport, and it was efficient. I got my passport renewed in Prague, the Czech Republic, and it took 5 days. So I've used it for that, but not for any emergency reasons. But I've heard that it's best to go there for these things too. But yeah, so it worked out. I used my card. I'm not my card. I'm sorry. I used my PayPal account to be able to pay for the hotel room while I wait for the card to be unblocked, which usually takes about 2 days or so. But you also have to factor in, me being from California, it's a 12-hour difference time zone. So they are 12 hours behind the country I was in. So it's basically feels like 3 days. So I had to maneuver the money, that I had coming in from work and all that, and kind of have it go to my PayPal and work with that. But it worked out. Those are the two most scariest moments. I have some little moments that happen, but these are the scariest because most, you're the most things that people that haven't traveled abroad or newly traveling abroad worry about is the finance thing and then the visa situation. So, those are the two ones that I was worried about as well. And when it did happen, it worked out okay because you just have to know some things, be prepared for some things. So, I also, with that being said, the lesson I've learned too with the banking situation is that having an international bank account. So you're not tied to an American bank, which I'm not now. I have a bank that is a European bank. I don't get charged fees when I'm in Europe using this bank account because I'm in Europe, and they don't have these fees like in the United States where they charge you for every little thing. They don't do that. So, it's just easier. It saves me money. Also, having another type of account like Wise or what is Payoneer. I used to have this, a bank of it's like kind of like a Japanese. Is it Japanese or Chinese? A Japanese or Chinese PayPal. It's called Payoneer, and I have that too because I work for a Japanese company and a Chinese company that use those methods of pay. So you can have money sitting in there and have it, sent to your PayPal account if it's, if you're have this problem with your American account. But the best option is to have another bank account in Europe or in the place where you're moving to or living. So I hope that doesn't sound all confusing. But yeah, those was my two scares, and that's my story time. And like I said, I'm going to pivot to more of these types of, content so you can find out what life is like abroad, the goods, the bad, and the ugly. But mostly good. I think I know I made the right choice to move abroad and to travel and explore and find my place. And I haven't found that forever country yet, but it's close. I'm getting there. But yeah, I'll make more content on different things that are happening and that you can look for or be prepared for when you are abroad, or things that are happening to me. So yeah, so next time maybe I'll have a Q&A where you can ask me questions. I'll have a list of questions that people have asked, and then I will answer them. Kind of like just on the fly. So maybe that's what I'll do. Okay, so look forward to that video next. It'll be the most questions I get asked as a expat or foreigner living abroad. I don't say, there's a thing where a lot of people who they get confused about what they should call themselves when you're living abroad, when it's not your home country. Some people say foreigners, some people say expats, or immigrants. I don't say immigrants because immigrants, in my opinion, are people who are immigrating to another country because their country is at war or have some types of issues. Yeah, I know United States is probably having issues now, so maybe I should be calling myself an immigrant now. But anyway, I don't really use that term because that's what it implies to me. Someone immigrating because of war or political issues or danger and things like that. So I stick with foreigner because that's what they call me or us when we are abroad in most countries, or an expat, someone that's expatriated or expatriating to a new country. Either buying a new home, buying a home, selling their home, moving abroad, buying another one abroad, just completely moving to another country, and becoming an expat this way. So I choose one of those. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed my story time of the fears that I had. The most, I guess that those are the two fears, uh, scary things that happened to me since I've been abroad. So I hope you enjoyed that. Look for my next content on the Q&A, the most popular questions I get asked while about living abroad as an American and a Black American specifically. All right. Well, bye.